On the water swap. Stop. Your dirty moment count. Stop, stop, stop. Oh, the ninjas go. Raffle, 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 raffle.
Okay. What's up, Gabers? Welcome to the first Girl Space panel featuring women from the esports industry. Tonight, we are highlighting the achievements of our lovely panelists, and then we will open the floor to our audience in an open Q&A. Details for submitting the questions are on our socials and in our Discord announcements. To kick off this panel, I'd love for each panelist to just share your names, your current occupation, and your alma mater.
Yeah, so hi, I'll start things off. My name's Kathy Chiang. I work at the UCI esports program, and I'm still there. Used to be a student as well, so that's my alma mater. Mostly what assistant director, what I do there is I manage most of our staff. I do a lot of our special programming, including our Girls in Gaming summer camp that I'll talk about a little later, and also just making sure that everything's running smoothly and that we are kind of hitting all the major goals of our program as we go forward.
Sabrina?
Oh, I'm second? Okay, awesome. Well, hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm Sabrina Wong. Currently, I'm the culture program specialist over at Evil Geniuses. Previously, I was at 100 Thieves and Immortals, Blizzard intern in 2017, and my alma mater is actually UC Riverside. I founded the chapter Highlander Gaming there in 2014, so really excited to speak with you all today.
Hi, I'm Sarah Schneider. I'm currently the Partnerships Account Manager at the Houston Outlaws. Previously, I was a social media manager at Gen G Esports, Women of Esports, and then also worked for Rooster Teeth and South by Southwest doing PR. So right now, currently dealing with partnerships and just overseeing contract deliverables, make goods, and making sure, things get done. My alma mater, I come from the University of Texas at Austin, Hook 'em Horns, and I was involved in Longhorn Gaming at their esports organization there. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy, Sabrina, and Sarah. We will go into our first question. How did you all get into collegiate gaming?
How did I get into it? So first, I was a student at UC Irvine. I had heard about a League of Legends club, and this is back in 2011. We had a bunch of students that were just like playing casually together in lobbies and whatnot. And we were like, why don't we actually do something with this and make it into a club? So at the time, I actually started out as a member. And they were like playing charades, they were doing like art contests, and they were doing like really casual tournaments. And I saw a potential to kind of bring it to the next level. And I started volunteering to spiff up the graphics, kind of ask about, are you interested in doing live streaming or doing like worlds viewing parties and things like that. So quickly kind of climbed my way up to becoming the an officer of the program. And as the years went by, we luckily, being in the right place and the right time, I think, got the attention of Riot Games with kind of the scale that we were starting to do some of our events. And so we became one of the first schools to kind of pilot test what would eventually become University League of Legends and now College League of Legends, where we were actually flown out. I think it was season 3 of playoffs. We rented a bunch of buses and went up to watch the finals and the playoffs. And that was like one of the coolest things. And obviously, like LCS hooked us up with tickets. So that was really when esports was blowing up. And I quickly kind of took control to make sure that the momentum kept going and expanded that League of Legends club into a club that was then game agnostic. We were one of the first Western chapter of TESPA as well. And we were trying to incorporate basically all the different games on campus and bring everyone together. So my start was also as a student organizer, as I think all of us have started out. And then afterwards, now luckily got a job at the university when we started exploring an official department for esports. And that's how I'm still involved, is very much still in collegiate, have not really moved on yet. And now I'm on the administrator side of things. So it's really interesting seeing and knowing what those like pain points are for the student organizers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, this is kind of a fun backstory, but and ties into the question. But I started the organization at UC Riverside because I felt like other colleges had a lot of resources. They had clubs for long-standing amounts of time before 2014. And one of the chapters that I really looked up to was at UCI. They had the league club, and then they built into the Association of Gamers, and they had UCI esports. And I took a lot of inspiration from those chapters. From Chiang Gaming to UCI, we had a lot of really great partnerships with these organizations. And these Southern California schools, in the 2014 era would come together to support each other's events and play at each other's tournaments. And it was such an amazing time. But how did I really get started in it? Honestly, there was a demand, and it didn't exist at that time. So what I really set out to do with a group of other people who've also made it really far in esports, and I've been really proud with, is just that we were all like, hey, there's no organization that is recognized by the school here. There are people who are participating in StarCraft tournaments and Street Fighter tournaments at the national level, but they don't have a home to really grow. So I worked with a team of people to get it on the administrative board. We got approved. We got a person to kind of recognize us in the student admin. And since then, it grew so rapidly. And it was such an amazing time because it grew out of the scope of just UC Riverside. Like, I think when we first launched our Discord, we hit 1,600 members. And we were working with schools all across the country to make things happen. And that really expanded my experience in the collegiate scene and let me have these opportunities in the future.
So I guess my journey into collegiate gaming is slightly different. So I went into UT, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was an undeclared major, and I rushed a sorority, made really good friends, but I found out that I was the only girl in my sorority that actually played video games. So I would be playing League of Legends, World of Warcraft in my little room in my sorority house. And, I got to thinking I would really like to make friends and be able to play games with these friends. And so I stumbled upon a flyer on my campus walking to class as like Longhorn Gaming, come check out our first meeting and come get involved. And I came to the first meeting, and there was so many people there. I was so overwhelmed, and I stuck it out. They gave like a whole spiel. They gave a whole basic talk on what Longhorn Gaming is and the community events and the lands they have. And I got really excited. I really wanted to find more people to play League with. And, I joined the organization just as a club member. And, throughout my time in college, I realized that I could turn my passion of gaming, I've been a gamer all my life, I could turn my passion of gaming into a career. And this was around the time of the esports boom. Like, esports is $1 billion industry. You saw the rise of Ninja, you saw Overwatch League come out, among Apex Legends and all these other games. And so I actually took it seriously, and I was like, I can make a career out of this, and started getting more involved in Longhorn Gaming. I eventually helped with a lot of the events they ran, a lot of the LANs, and then eventually became their PR director. So Longhorn Gaming ultimately was a fun project for me, but helped me find a passion in my career.
These are a lot of really awesome origin stories that I've been looking forward to hearing for a very long time. But the next question, how did you transition from the collegiate scene into the esports industry?
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that because I'm still very much in collegiate, but I guess for me, it would be more the student to administrator path. So for that, it really was, I was just getting ready to graduate. I was pretty much my junior year of college. I was saying, I need to transition this to other leaders. I need to train up the next generation of, the club officers and whatnot, because I knew I was graduating pretty soon. Unbeknown to me that some requirements got messed up. I actually stayed a 5th year, but I was kind of in this panic mode. I was like, I'm leaving. I kind of had a problem of trying to take too much under my wing. And this is a very common problem in clubs, is sometimes the presidents are too unwilling to kind of, delegate and let go of their baby. So I was kind of in this mode of trying to move on. And at this point, I studied computer game science. So I was actually really looking toward like developer and publisher roles. So I was looking into maybe doing community roles within game development, or even just programming and doing game design. I interned at Riot Games right before graduating, and I was almost sure I was going to move, to LA and just start working at a studio somewhere. When out of nowhere, I get contacted by Mark Deppy, who's our current director of UCI Esports, who was previously working for Student Life and student government. So he reached out saying that he had just discovered esports, right? This is 2015. He had played some StarCraft in college, but until then, he didn't realize there was a whole competitive arena, and he did a business project on Blizzard Entertainment, which is really nearby. So he had discovered this whole growing competitive sphere and was like, we need to do this. This is the future of college. Traditional sports might die out eventually. Like, everyone's on a computer these days. So he brought me on, along with a couple other officers from our club, to serve as essentially advisors on the student or on the ground level. So we knew things like what events are successful, what titles do our students play. We had the developer, publisher, hardware, software connections already doing all the events that we did. So that's how I kind of got involved in the administrator side. And by the time I had graduated, a job offer just fell through from a game developer. And Mark was like, you know what? I can't do this alone. Actually, we probably need someone else working full time to bring this to the university level. So we were basically becoming our own department, and he was going to be the acting director. And he said, please help me figure out what to do with this facility. We got to hire students. We got to put on events. We got to do all this stuff. And I'm not that familiar with that. So I thankfully got the position in August 2016 after having just graduated that March. So really was like a really fortunate situation for me. I was really panicking about where I was going to go. And this kind of just landed as the perfect fit for me, having been at UCI for about 5 years then, focused on esports. I was then able to bring that to kind of my professional life. So all the things I started out with, every single skill, every single experience was out of running that collegiate club. So I can't emphasize this enough. You might think of it as a hobby or something to kind of help you with and be fun. But Sarah mentioned this also, it helped her get to where she is now. And the same holds true for me as well, especially since I'm at the same institution.
Yeah, I mean, my story starts similar to Kathy's, but ends a little bit differently. Again, I think my motivation, even when I was in the collegiate space, was I wanted to make it to the pro leagues. I knew in my heart that I wanted to grow my career. That's just my personality. I constantly, every year, I reevaluate what I'm doing and what my career is looking like. And I'm making sure that I'm hitting all the points that I need to hit. And for me personally, I graduated at UC Riverside 1 semester early. So I was able to kind of look at these jobs. And I actually had a couple of offers. right out of college, just because I had that opportunity to network a lot in my collegiate space, as well as have that internship over at Blizzard Entertainment. And I ended up actually at Immortals right after college. And the reason why was that I was very annoying. Like, to be real, at this time, I graduated in 2018, and I would go to the LCS on every weekend. And if you are from UC Riverside, you know how far that drive is. It's about 2 hours. But I would go to Santa Monica, go to the LCS, and literally after the games, there's managers, there's team owners, there's, all these other kind of employees over at LCS. And I would go up to people and give them business cards. Like, like a really annoying person. But at the same time, like, I think a lot of my drive came through that way. And I presented myself very professionally during those times. And one of the people that took notice was Noah Winston. And when he heard that I was graduating early and he saw the work that I did at Blizzard Entertainment with the esports program as well as TESPA, he was like, oh, when are you graduating? I was like, oh, I'm actually graduating early. And he's like, okay. And he gave me the interview for a events position, which I have to thank him for. Like, that was an amazing experience. So yeah, my career was really built on the collegiate experience and being able to take advantage of the resources that were available to me, as a college kid. When you send that email, when you meet someone, you're like, I'm a college student and I'm ready to work here. It sets a different kind of tone when you have those conversations with people who are key holders within the esports space. So that's my experience.
Yeah, so I would say my experience is a little different because Longhorn Gaming became more of an accessory to my pursuit of my career. So I joined Longhorn Gaming and I got really involved as just a community member, participating, figuring out, what does this club really do for me? And after I figured out I wanted to do esports as a career and grow in this passion, I started my pursuit of internships that would help me achieve that goal. My first internship was at South by Southwest, and I was a PR intern. And one of the main things that I made sure was very apparent across the board was if there's anything to do with South by Southwest gaming that I can help out with, I have connections at Longhorn Gaming. I want to get us involved. I want to do things with the gaming portion. And so I got those opportunities. Moving on from there, I went into Rooster Teeth and I was a PR intern there. I also helped them give great insight to some of the games they produced by utilizing my connection with Longhorn Gaming. And then also use that PR knowledge I was getting from my past internships to in turn help Longhorn Gaming and figure out, how can we make our presence bigger than just a collegiate organization? Because compared to esports organizations in California, UT doesn't really invest in their esports organization. So how do we get that investment? Well, we need sponsors. We need people to recognize us as a legitimate org. We need people to write about us and talk about us. So my job as a PR director was to get people to notice the great things we were doing. So honestly, having internships benefited our esports organization as a whole, but also vice versa. Just helped me really establish, what do I want to do in my career, and then also helped me get involved further into esports. So there was an organization that was created by Syra Mueller called Women of Esports, and I ended up joining that organization, became a social media manager there, and that helped me kind of further my adventure into esports, and ultimately helped me reach my first job at Gen G. So all in all, I feel like my participation in Longhorn Gaming helped me land the internships that I need, but also my participation in Longhorn Gaming helped me with the internships and the projects that I was doing there. So everything kind of came together and really helped me figure out, what is my passion and what do I want to do? That's a long, convoluted way of transitioning from collegiate into esports, but yeah.
I really loved hearing all your transitionary stories. I think that it's something that a lot of women in gaming, in collegiate gaming, should consider, that being a part of a community can open up many opportunities for you as far as your career goes and your passion. So to be able to pursue that is amazing. On to the next question. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership. Being role models to young women who want to pursue gaming as a career, who were your role models?
Yeah, this one's always a pretty rough question for me because when I think about now versus when I had started in the collegiate space, it was just so early on. So when we were kind of finding our foothold and trying to figure out what are we going to do, where are we taking this gaming club and this esports club, there I really didn't hear about a lot of other people trying it. There were maybe one or two other schools that were starting roughly the same time or maybe a year or two after. So I feel like for me, my role models actually were essentially just peers as well. So a lot of us were kind of stumbling around in the darkness, trying to figure it all out. So some of the earlier clubs as well. I guess it's less about individual role models, but I would say like Games Fest at UCSD has been around longer than esports and League of Legends has been. I was really involved. Well, not really involved, but I was a big fan of like the big melee tournaments they used to host when I was in high school. We would actually drive down. I lived in LA County, and we would drive down to UCSD every year just to participate there, and like stay overnight and like kind of have a mini dorm experience. So I saw WGF as like kind of the role model for what we should be doing with esports titles as League of Legends blew up, as all these other games are getting really big. And I saw a lot of cool ideas that would then become, I think, a big part of why Triton Gaming was very successful too, was just all the great ways that they put into engaging their students. Like everyone talks about UCI and UCSD as kind of like the two big SoCal schools starting out. And I would, despite being a little older than some other officers, like Kevin He, for example, I've always thought he's been very inspirational. He's so charismatic. He is such a hard worker. And despite being older than him, I'm like, yeah, I aspire to do what you've done with Triton Gaming, and then also moved on to be so successful in esports as well. And now these days, I see a lot more women in the space. I see a lot more people obviously running hundreds of collegiate clubs that I can have new role models that, again, like I'm older, I'm on the administrative side, but I still look to students as role models because I feel like there's a level of difficulty there, and it's a completely different scene at like currently compared to what it was back then. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Sabrina. Like, you were a student and you met me when I just got the job, but I was already like, wow, I wish I did all these things that you did when I was a student. And I think just kind of seeing your career progress, it's like students like Sabrina and where you are now is just still super like impressive. And yeah, I'm just like really inspired by everyone, what they do today.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say Kathy was kind of my first choice during the collegiate space because she was the only leader who was a woman that I knew in the collegiate sports space. There wasn't any other ones at that time. Like it was very rare, to find a woman. And, even at my experience at UCR Highlander Gaming specifically, there wasn't a lot of female members as well. Like we didn't see a lot of women joining our organization as hard as I tried. I would say like, again, in that Discord, when we first opened at 1,600 members, I could 5 or 6 were women and, only 3 to 4 were extremely active. And it was tough to find those kinds of woman role models at that time. And I think that really positioned how I felt about what I was able to do and how I felt about people like Kathy was that we are the representation for the next generation of collegiate esports people. I mean, again, when we say generation, 2 to 4 years, but like literally, like we needed to inspire more women to get involved because it's a beautiful industry, and I know women are being involved in gaming. Like, look at today. I'm talking to a ton of candidates, for the Evil Geniuses collegiate program every day, and I would say 50 to 60% of our applicants are women. Like that is so cool. Like I could not have said that when I was in college a couple of years ago, and I kind of feel proud of the work that all the women here on the panel have done as well, because we're constantly, just by existing, representing that, hey, you can do this. Like it's not impossible. You can face those challenges that we specifically face and get over it and even succeed. So like, yeah, I kind of wish there was a little bit more woman representation during that time, but as Kathy mentioned, there was a lot of other people in the collegiate space who respected diversity and inclusion during that time that I looked up to as well.
Yeah, and I just have to second that. Sabrina Wong is definitely someone on my list. I wrote out like a whole list of role models. I would have to say, just being friends with Sabrina and Heather Wicks are two very goal-driven people that are working in esports. They always are very supportive of everything that we're doing, and they are achieving very big things. And so it kind of pushes me and myself to strive for more. So definitely have to say those two are definitely some role models. Just have to hype you up.
Likewise.
I would also have to say, Syra Mueller is definitely a role model to me. She created this entire program of Women of Esports, which basically is a community of women that are either in pursuit of having a career in esports, which was me in college. And I was very fortunate and very happy when I got accepted to this group. And then also women that are already working in esports. So it's just amazing that someone was able to create that community and have all of these great, amazing women from C9 and FlyQuest and EG all come together in this community that you could simply reach out to someone and ask for a connection or, hey, do you want to chat? Do you want to get coffee? Which definitely helped me in my career, having that networking ability to reach out to these women and learn from them and kind of have them be bigger role models to me. And then also I would have to say my Gen G coworkers, Amanda Kane, Gina Lee, Christina Kim, I would have to say the majority of workers at Gen G are female, which is very rare for an esports organization, but it's also very cool. And, they are badass women, excuse my French, doing great things in the gaming space. Some of them came from fashion, so they're bringing some knowledge from fashion. And they've always just been such great supporters of female empowerment and the great initiatives they're doing at Gen G with their Bumble initiative and their all-female pro Fortnite team, and their content creators as well. They've helped me gain a lot of confidence in my work, and they've always been super supportive. So they've been incredible role models to me.
It's interesting to hear what inspires the women like you that have already led collegiate gaming and the gaming industry, and to hear how much it's been changing from your guys' perspective is really interesting too. What programs have you guys organized and fostered that have promoted women in gaming?
I think this was definitely a challenge, I think, when I was a student, was figuring out what are we actually allowed to do, particularly around kind of exclusionary spaces, because that was kind of like, even today, we have a girls in gaming camp, for example, that I started running, or we started running. I didn't come up with it, in which we can't say only girls can sign up, because that is something you just can't do on a college campus. So as a student, we were constantly trying to be creative about ways to get more women involved. And what I've discovered is, when I was president of the club, just kind of what Sav said, like, just by existing, I was encouraging more women to apply and to become members. And for us, it was kind of a constant challenge to try to have our eyes everywhere to see who or what might be causing women to actually avoid the club, because maybe they have a bad experience. Maybe there's an officer abusing their power. There's all these different things we had to keep an eye out for. So one of the things that was successful as an undergraduate was to implement an internship program. So we wanted to have people apply to be interns before they were considered to become officers of the club. So one, we could also vet them and train them and make sure they're prepared for that role. But two, it was also a great way of bonding with kind of the next generation of officers. So we had so many women apply for that internship program. And I would say the most notable leaders that kind of upped our game in business, in sponsor outreach, in social media, a lot of those leaders from within TAG and UCI Esports have been women, and now work in social media marketing and all these different roles, in at Discord, at HyperX, etc. And all of that stuff, I think, wouldn't have been possible if they didn't step up as a student and kind of maybe put themselves in an uncomfortable position at first. But hopefully some of the stuff that we did helped to make that a little bit better, because we had kind of an internal network of a bunch of professional women that were working together. And at UCI Esports, on the administrator side, I would say the biggest thing would be the Girls in Gaming summer camps that Sabrina has been a speaker at, I think, 2 years,
Yes.
if not 3. So awesome guest speaker. Everyone always loves you. But the idea of that came from an intern at the time, Hillary Fan, who actually now works full-time with us as player support coordinator. And as a student, she came up with this idea, like, why don't we have specific programming for younger women, like people in high school and middle school that don't see gaming as a safe space or even a space where they belong. And maybe we can change that by bringing a bunch of experts from the industry that are, inspirational and can kind of talk about their journey to esports and beyond. So also speaking to kind of what Sarah mentioned, having like proof of people in the industry that are successful and have a great story and are also just, bringing you up the whole way was actually something we figured our network of professional contacts would be used best for young women. So we would bring together a bunch of experts from the industry, from game designers to shoutcasters to journalists, the streamers, and kind of talk about the way they got there and also talk about the challenges, right, that a lot of the young women might be facing. So we've done that since 2017. And this year we're trying to figure out a new format based on everything going virtual and all that. But it's a program we want to do every single year at least. And last year we were lucky enough to partner with Riot Games to offer a weekend boot camp kind of for girls in gaming as well. That was actually hosted on their campus. That was supported by all the women at C9. So that was really awesome seeing them come out and hearing their stories. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been working on, is just seeing how we can build up that pipeline, because I think representation is already getting better, but we can continue to do more to encourage more young women in the space.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with Kathy. I think she's done a really great job of kind of working on, the administrative side, as well as just, living that kind of lifestyle where you are a representative and you're cultivating those healthy communities for women in gaming. I actually have a pretty similar thing. So, when it comes to work, I've always somehow been involved with diversity and inclusion because that's just something that I really value as a person. And I think that is really important to bring to the workspace. So at Evil Geniuses, I'm actually the diversity and inclusion lead. So I'm running all kinds of programming internally and externally on these kinds of topics, not just women in gaming, but in general. And in a lot of the other workplaces I've worked at as well, very similar situation. I'll lead a diversity and inclusion team or a committee, and we'll have conversations, roundtables, things like that. But I think the thing that has been the most impactful, to be honest, is being able to cultivate those very organic communities where women can kind of speak about their experiences and feel supported. And Sarah's actually part of one of these groups that we have that is like so organic. It's like literally we're just friends, but at the same time, like it started because we were women in gaming trying to make it. And like it's been an amazing experience to have those kind of women by my side to support me on the projects that I'm doing, and also like giving feedback and radical candor and things like that. So it's been amazing there. I think the second most important thing that, I've been really proud of during my time in my career so far is being able to speak on panels like this, educational elements, outreaching to people outside of, not EG Sab, not Kill Steal Sab, like Sab as like a woman in gaming, talking about her experience, I think has been so valuable. And I feel like I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from women in the space saying like, hey, I learned XYZ from your talk. I feel inspired to do something. And that has had the most effect on me. So yeah, I think like honestly, educational panels like this really open the doors for young women in this space to understand that like what is achievable and like how does it work and what's the journey like for someone like all of us.
So I guess the programs that I've kind of organized, going off of your summer camp idea, Kathy, I wanted to mention I was a part of a camp that Gen G put together with EMU, which was a virtual summer camp. So they went to a virtual format, and it was honestly the exact same thing. They did like a panel with some professionals, and they taught young women, I believe, ages like 8 to 10, and then they did an older session of collegiate, and it was honestly such a great experience to participate in something like that. So those are being able to participate in those and help younger generations and younger women discover, you can make a career in esports. This is how to do it, and offering that advice is something that I find really valuable and really rewarding as being someone that can now give that advice to someone looking to enter this space. But apart from programs that I've organized specifically, so at UT, I joined Longhorn Gaming, and honestly, the coming to my first meeting at Longhorn Gaming was really overwhelming. It was like a 300-person meeting. There's people even standing because there wasn't enough seats. And I have to tell you, it was majority male. And, fast forward to becoming a PR director for Longhorn Gaming, I was talking to someone at the Daily Texan, which is a student newspaper, and she was asking me all these questions about Longhorn Gaming and our competitive scene and honestly the demographics. She noticed there's more men than women. How do I feel about that? And she asked me afterwards, completely off the record, she was like, how do you feel if we made a separate group that was UT Women in Gaming and we made it more inclusive and LGBTQ friendly? And I said, that's a great opportunity. Let me help you do that. And, there's a way to brand something like UT Women in Gaming and make a space that's friendly for women to come into and have a community, like Women of Esports, of women in gaming, and we made that community. And then apart from that, we also that brought in opportunities to kind of link that further into Longhorn Gaming and provide those opportunities to have events together and do separate lands together and everything like that. But it also gave us an opportunity to grow our women community that also just want to connect with each other and want to play games with each other. So that's something that I helped establish at UT, and is something that's continuing to run today. They are doing some virtual events throughout the rest of the year, and they're even having some women that are, working in the scene speak on mini panels for them. So they're doing great, and I'm very proud to help have established that organization at UT.
Man, I wish I was a part of those programs. It would have been nice to get educated on gaming with the women. And it sounds like you guys have made a lot of great strides. It looks like we finished a little bit early here, so we're going to take our intermission / break a little bit early, and we can reconvene at 6:45. Thank you to our viewers for watching what we've had so far, and I hope you guys stick around for the second part as well as the open Q&A.
funky.
Okay, welcome back to the Girl Space stream. Continuing from where we left off, we are going to now talk about community building. So girls, how do we train collegiate organizations to create welcoming environments for women in gaming?
Yeah, this is the ever popular question. Everyone's asking us how to solve the problem, I think. And honestly, I think a lot of it is, some of it's organic, some of it is a result of other things, like more women coming into leadership, like I talked about before. But I would say that with any environment that wants to be inclusive and friendly, you have to set expectations and a code of conduct like very upfront. I think just kind of understanding like the term toxicity is so subjective and also very vague that a lot of times people don't really know what you mean when you say don't be toxic or don't be rude, like treat people how you want to be treated. But what if a lot of these kids are growing up in toxic environments. They're used to online banter that is, homophobic or racist and all these different things, that you can't just expect everyone has the same standards as you do. So at UCI, we partnered up with AnyKey before we even launched to kind of get their advice on their Keystone code and how we could adapt that to a university environment. And we also talked to a lot of different people, including researchers on our own campuses, about kind of iterating on that every year. So we've made some significant changes from year one where we actually did have a rule. I was kind of shady to myself, or throwing shade to myself, but we had a rule that said no toxicity. And it became like a meme on our campus where everyone walked in and like their friend would make a joke and they would be like, oh, that's so toxic, like kick him out. And no one really took it seriously because what do you exactly mean? So we had to get more specific. We had to, consult the experts and really discuss this. And then another big effort our first year was to put together an inclusivity and diversity task force that had like administrators, faculty, students, industry experts. Like we brought in a bunch of different women and a bunch of allies as well to kind of discuss what are the problems at every single different level, from institutional, like what are the harassment policies on campus, what are the types of events that are being hosted by like our care facility, our our counseling center, and seeing what resources already existed and then bringing that all into the fold, and also trying to make it more welcoming for gamers specifically. Because there are actually so many resources that I didn't know about until I started reaching out to partners and seeing what people are offering, and then like rewriting their presentations to include memes and references to games so people actually listen and understand it, is how we've seen things get a lot better after that, is because we would make our own versions of things that are like gamer centric. So hosting a tournament and then also having a talk from our resources, facilities, and all that, like that was really an interesting way to kind of marry those two things together.
Yeah, I mean, what Kathy said was really innovative, but I think one of the clearest things that I realized was coming from collegiate into like pro esports leagues was that pro esports leagues got money. They can invest in resources and task force and having speakers come in and developing that kind of culture. But when you're a collegiate leader, you're working with as little as possible to make the most happen. And I think, what I've learned as a lesson, during my time at Highlander Gaming, and I don't think I did an amazing job during this because I felt overwhelmed. As Kathy mentioned a little bit earlier in this panel, as president, you want to do everything. And if you do everything, you're going to drop things. Like, it's just the reality of it. And, coming out of college, I realized this. And what I really wish I could have done better was, focusing outreach to women, making sure that communities felt safe by, not only organically making small changes, but really putting in that into the regulations. Like, I let people say things about me when I shouldn't have done that as a woman leader, because that reflects to other women in the organization that that's how they're going to be treated if they pursue a position in leadership. And I think that was not cool. I should not have just been like sucking it up, because standing your ground speaks way more volumes than just like being silent and just letting it happen. And I think a lot of that is just making actionable items, working with your team to make sure that people feel safe. Sexist things just don't, nope, like you're out, you're gone. We don't need you here. Like, you need to cultivate that culture very much intentionally. You can't just let those things happen. And again, that is very difficult in a collegiate space, especially at UC Riverside. At that time, we didn't have like administrative supported esports. It was really just student run and grew very big, very fast. That takes the officers that are in place to make sure that happens. And I'm going to be frank, at that time, like I felt like sometimes it was insinuated by the officers themselves, and then the members would feel uncomfortable. Like, that's not cool. So hopefully like it's changed a lot since then. But definitely in these early years of esports, it was quite difficult, and thankfully lots of lessons learned.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. You know, setting the ground rules of like, this is okay and this is not okay definitely goes into helping foster and create that healthy environment with everyone. At UT, what we did is we kind of separated those communities. You know, we eternally we grew UT Women in Gaming and made it more open to LGBTQ. We made it very inclusive for anyone and everyone to join, regardless if you were a woman or not. And we set those ground rules. We said, you know, this is okay, this isn't okay. We established our Discord. We set up, you know, rules of what is and isn't okay. We even set up channels there to help people feel like they're a part of the community. We allowed those friendships to foster and connect women that are also interested in gaming together. We created events that women were excited to participate in, and ultimately we created the community that we wanted to be a part of, which was really, really cool. And, you know, like also tying into Longhorn Gaming, we would eventually grow to do events with them and intermingle with them. So, you know, taking our community into our own hands was how we eternally created a better environment for ourselves.
That's awesome. So you guys have done a really good job in, you know, fostering the kind of environment that you want to see in collegiate, despite not, you know, necessarily having all the resources needed to make it happen instantaneously. So it's like an ongoing thing. It's one of those ongoing conversations that you have to keep having in order to continue to adapt. In your opinion, have you seen a positive change in the way women and minorities are treated in the gaming industry?
I think broadly, I think yes. Just in general, when I still don't use voice chat in games, but I've noticed more women will, or I'll notice when I'm playing games that it's not always I'm the only girl in the room kind of situation. So I think in gaming broadly, we've just seen more women become more visible, be more outspoken, be more like unafraid of being themselves. Because I tell this story a lot, but when I was younger, like I would always lie about my age, I would always lie about my gender. So I was like some 19-year-old guy for like 5 years. Um, and that was my way of keeping myself safe and like feeling like I could focus on the game and not worry about what people thought of me. And I don't see that happening as much anymore. And I think that's something I've been really proud of, meeting girls that are a lot younger, but are being themselves and being comfortable and kind of owning their presence online. So I've noticed that. There's definitely not perfect yet. I know there's a lot of, this is obviously a conversation about women in gaming, but I think there's a lot of different people out there that, depending on what group you're from, you're going to face your own challenges. And there's like constant bias that you have to fight against, or injustices that are out there. And I think it's a positive and a negative thing, kind of being so connected on social media right now, is that you can see the problems more clearly, but you can also feel the pain more acutely. And I think sometimes it can get a little overwhelming, but overall, I think movement is in the right direction. So all we have to do is take that momentum and not ignore it, and actually like internalize it and then try to make change in our own ways. So doing that through the pro industry, doing that through the collegiate, trying to do that from the student side as well as the administrator side. I think that's the call to action now, is like no one is exempt from this responsibility. Like it's up to every single person at every level to be thinking about these things very carefully. And I've actually been, despite all the bad news kind of that's been coming out lately, I think it's been motivating to know how far we have to go, but also see that people are already moving in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with Kathy. I tell this story a lot on these kinds of panels because it's really what opened my eyes. And it's kind of sad, but it's also uplifting to see where we are now. But at my first esports event, I was really excited to go. This was LG Anaheim 2013. I was a senior in high school. I was so excited to go to my first esports game. And I had a great time. But I also felt so alienated because I saw only about 5 women at that entire event. And this was a venue that fit, over 1,000 to 2,000 people watching League of Legends, Dota, Call of Duty, everything. And I was like, out of all these games, there's like only this many women. Like I just couldn't fathom why. Because this was my first experience within the esports event space. And I knew that on that day, like I had told all my friends in high school, I'm going to make this different. Like I just knew. And since then, being able to lead Highlander Gaming and do all these other things, I realized like how important it was to be that extra one girl there and reach out to women who are also in the space and say, hey, are you comfortable? Are you having fun? Do you want to be friends? Like how valuable being that person was, because I didn't have that at my first event. And it would have meant the world if someone did that for me. So I was really motivated since then to do that. And it's been crazy to go to the LCS and work at the LCS as a manager and, do these diversity events over at Immortals and see, 30 to 50% of these events have women now. Like, what? Like, and so it's such a little time, we're in 2020, that was 2013, only 7 years. Have we seen this, like, women feel more comfortable to enter these spaces, to be themselves and to represent themselves creatively. So that's been really great to hear. But Kathy's completely right. We're not done. There's so much more that we need to do to make people feel comfortable, feel like they can be themselves and be part of the community. And I'm always striving to find that solution, but I don't think it's straightforward. I think it's something that we need to rely on each other, on the community, and not just women in the space, but others as well. And this isn't just a gender issue. This is all kinds of groups and people and communities that really need to be represented correctly and feel like they're belong, because gaming is for everyone. Gaming doesn't discriminate. The players do. So hopefully we see a little bit of improvement over time. I think a lot of the action items that Kathy has talked about is absolutely true. I also think that we need to actively call out these kinds of behaviors and make sure that they stop. But yeah, I mean, we're trending correctly. We're still a long way though.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We have seen a positive change over the past few years, but we're not there yet, and we need to pick up the momentum, and we need those allies that are also going to continue this momentum as well. So, I think we're heading in the right direction. We're seeing a lot of esports organizations set up initiatives to empower females. You see Genji Esports taking control with Bumble. Bumble BFF now connects women to other women that want to play games together, which is really, really cool. Not a lot of people know about that. And then FlyQuest is coming out with women's apparel. There's always that dreaded esports dress that filters through the Twitter webs all the time. And it's, we're now moving to that sector of women's apparel is being created, and it's more included in the esports merchandising. It's including women in the factor of we exist. So we're moving in the right direction. And then honestly, I feel like the community of women in esports and in gaming is very supportive of one another. And that's why I love working in this industry, because of this community. Like, we are going to hype each other up when we do something great. That's why I love working with women of esports, because when we see someone doing something great, we're going to retweet them. We're going to show them off. We're going to say, hey, world, look at what cool things they're doing and cool initiatives they're doing. And it's really great to see that more orgs are coming forward and creating these things. I do say that, there's still a ways to go. I would say, pretending to be a 19-year-old boy on voice comms or just not speaking at all is definitely still a thing. For instance, yesterday you saw the Call of Duty creator code come out. And, there was an issue with some women that actually were offered the code versus some pro players. And people in the comments would say, oh, she just got it because she's a girl. When in reality, these women are grinding the game the same as these men are. So, I think there is still a lot of progress that needs to be done. And, it is very important when you see a sexist comment or you see someone saying something toxic in chat, like, that's not okay. Like, that needs to be an instant ban if you're in an organization or anywhere, honestly, because we just need to set that ground rule of that's not okay anymore. This is 2020. You can't do that here. So progress is being made, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, we see a positive change, but there's always more to be done. Always. So now that we've gotten through all of my team and mine questions, we have some questions from the open Q&A submissions. We can start with the ones that are geared towards all of you. I remember discussing during intermission about one particular question. You guys, if you guys are comfortable with the one that Yamato posted, 6:36 p.m. Or we could talk about. Oh, okay. Here's something that could, offer some advice to women that are interested in pursuing a career in esports. What are some important skills to have in order to maintain a career within esports, within the community?
So I guess I'll kick things off. It's kind of a vague question, unfortunately. I'm trying to understand like if there's a specific career that you're interested in, because the esports community as a whole is so broad. There's a lot of different skills that can be relevant to those niches a little better. But I think just broadly, communication is really big. I think just in general, you have to be comfortable talking to a lot of different people. You have to be confident in yourself when you're like, if you're pitching an idea or you're responding to someone in the community and you're like a community manager, like being able to remain professional and responsive in those situations is always going to be a plus. Like knowing how to write a professional email, knowing how to like not reach out to someone and just say hello, like actually introduce what you want and who you are. Those are really important within esports, because I think now that everyone's trying to get into it, I'm getting hit up every day with random DMs from people I don't know. And if you're messaging me and just saying hi, it's not going to get you anywhere because I don't know who you are or what you want. So small things like that, just knowing the right ways to communicate, understanding what professionalism is, and then also just knowing how to like network. It's unfortunate, but I think every entertainment industry does depend a lot on networking and knowing the right people. And as Sab demonstrated with her business card handing out at LCS, it's something you have to actively do. You can't just kind of go to events and stand in a corner and hope that people are going to come up to you and introduce themselves. You have to look for the people in the role that you're aiming for, introduce yourself, explain that you're actually really passionate about it, and then demonstrate that by trying to take on your own projects. So those are like the vague kind of starting suggestions that I have. But yeah, interested in hearing what the others will recommend.
Yeah, I think Kathy really brought up like things that you should know. Like you should be able to determine what direction you want to go in esports. It's very difficult to hit with a broad stroke. Even if it's like some sort of department you want to work for, like having that kind of understanding and able to sell yourself with the skills that you already have is extremely important. I kind of want to touch on some things that you really shouldn't do and like why. First off, like I don't understand why this is a thing, and I'm talking a lot about like collegiate to pro esports, the experience. There's a lot of lack of professionalism for some reason. I don't really understand why, but a lot of people say like, "Oh, this is a gaming industry. Like I don't need to dress up for my interview. I don't need to have like a cover letter. Why do I need a cover letter? It doesn't make sense. Like I'm diamond in League of Legends or something." Like, no, like you need to know how to present yourself. You're constantly selling yourself in a small industry like esports. Like as much as there's a broad range of careers, the esports bubble is still quite small, in comparison to a lot of other industries in the world. So being able to really narrow that down and sell yourself and be professional and always come with your best foot forward is important. Also, being able to work with a team is really important. And I know that sounds really easy. Like, oh, we work in teams all the time. We work on group projects at school and things like that. No, being able to communicate with people, management, giving positive and negative feedback that is valuable to the person, not just criticism, and being able to really improve yourself as well as others around you will get you really far. And I'll say like the last thing that people really need to understand in esports is that it's not easy. Like people have this weird notion, I think, coming from the collegiate scene to the pro scene that, oh, it'll be the same, it'll be easy, I can do this. And I'll say, as a person who was really confident in the things that I did in my collegiate career, that it's a completely different world. You have more resources, you have more support, you have people who believe in you, and that's amazing. At the same time, your responsibilities grow and grow, and you're presenting yourself not as like just you, but as a representative of your organization as well. So making sure that you're always aligned with your organization's values and building your career over time is challenging. But the number one thing is, understanding what you bring to the team, what value you have, and being able to showcase that through your actions is what it really takes.
Yeah, definitely honing in on those points of, communication, what you shouldn't do for sure, because the esports scene is very, very small. Being able to network with people, and also the follow up is very, very important. And then also, something that I really recommend that you do is, focus on what you want to do in esports. There's a lot of people that come to us. It's like, hey, I want to work in esports. It's like, okay, but what do you want to do? And honestly, the opportunities are endless, and you can really create what job you want to do in esports. But something I do want to bring up, because we are in a COVID landscape, is some important skills to have moving forward, as everything's basically virtual right now, right? So being able to communicate virtually and get across your point and over communicate to make sure everyone's on the same page, and always don't assume something, because apples could mean oranges to someone. And then also being creative is very important right now, because you're seeing events go away. Well, how do you run a virtual event? What does that look like? I think fostering your creativity and thinking outside of the box of what could be is definitely going to help you get a career in esports, especially right now. And then also, I just highly recommend you watch and follow what all these other teams are doing, because you could see like, hey, EG is doing something with Amazon and the boys. Like, what is that all about? Oh, this team is doing a tournament, and they're doing a tournament virtually. Like, how does that work? How does a virtual tailgate work? So, kind of drawing from inspirations and just watching what others are doing is definitely going to help you kind of see your career in esports in a COVID landscape.
Those are some really interesting things that I hadn't considered, and I'm sure that are really helpful to a lot of people watching this stream right now. A recent question just came in. I saw that was liked by Sav and Kathy. How do you manage the stress, the feeling of being overwhelmed, and keep organized?
So I think this is a really great question, because you hear about burnout in esports a lot. It's actually a really big problem, because you have people that are volunteering their time. Some people might be working full time but understaffed, or you might be lucky and actually be part of an organization that, has things planned out and really knows what they're doing. So for people at the ground level, honestly, like, a lot of people say volunteering is a great way to get your foot in the door and do things for free. And partially, like, I would say that's true. A lot of us started by volunteering, especially in the club environment. But I would say that something to be very aware of is like when you're going to be taken advantage of. If someone can afford to pay you, but they choose not to, or it's something where you're doing it just to get another line on your resume and it's not for a cause that you actually believe in, it's very, very easy to feel stressed and overwhelmed in an environment where you're not being valued, where you're being overworked, and you're not doing something that you genuinely have a passion for. So I think it's important to kind of keep an eye out for yourself, and also build a network of friends and colleagues that can also look out for you. Because if you notice a friend is signing up for something that doesn't seem like a good idea, sometimes they might not see it themselves, but you can point that out to them. So kind of all of us have talked about this to some extent, like having a community, having a support structure is so, so important. And something that I've seen really help out, especially in kind of the esports industry, is people getting together and just playing games outside of work. Like, you can bond with your colleagues without it always having to be like esports and gaming, and like you have to play League of Legends or whatever if you're a league team. Like, people are playing like Among Us and jukebox games and all these things like that. Jackbox, I believe. Sorry, and just kind of having fun with it, where it's all about the social interaction right now, especially during COVID. I think that's a really good point. Is even now that we're really isolated, it's kind of hard to have that social interaction that helps relieve stress and helps kind of maintain your sense of community. So I think reaching out to people, having video calls, having game nights and things, those are all very important. And then on the organization side, honestly, that depends on your work style, but I would say try to find some sort of tool that works really well for you, whether that's like having a Trello board, having like, some people in my office still use sticky notes and that works really well for them. For me, I prefer having like a built-in project management tool like that I can access on my phone or my computer, and then actively using it, because you don't want your to-do list to actually become a chore. Like, it's supposed to make your life easier. So like, remember to use it and find something that works for you to just kind of remind you of what stuff you're working on and why you're doing it. Because I think just kind of, you have to manage your expectations. Like, you want to do everything. You want to work on this 24/7 if you really love it. But you do have to put that phone down sometimes. You do have to have some time for yourself. Take your weekends. Don't work 7 days a week. Just small things like that.
Yeah, this is a really important question because I think that all of us here have also experienced it. To be completely real, in the collegiate space especially, I felt a lot of burnout. And I think it was just because I wasn't really managing the projects and tasks that I felt like we needed to do well. And coming into the pro scene and learning those kinds of hard lessons, I realized that, like, again, as Kathy said, making sure that you manage your expectations, consider the people in your circle who can support you, wave the white flag when you need to, when you have too much work. I think a lot of people are afraid because esports is such a competitive space that they say, "Oh, if I said that I can't do this, like everyone's going to hate me and I'm just going to lose my job." And that's not true. And if it is, that's a toxic environment. That's something to face in first. But the reality is that you need to be understand your potential and your workload and carefully manage that. Make sure expectations are correctly and that you're presenting yourself correctly as well. Like, you don't want to say, "Yeah, I can do it," when you can't, because that doesn't mean you're just getting that piece of work. You're probably getting another 15% as well. So being able to understand and manage that is number one. I think also, as Kathy said, having a support system is really important, whether it's in your workplace, in your organization, or in your free time. Having friends that can just hear you out, vent, spend some extra time, not think about work is so valuable. I think that, one of the best things that I've had since I graduated college was such a strong support system of not just women in this space, but all kinds of people who are willing to kind of hear me out and vent and rant and do everything that I need to do, because that is healthy. Like, we should be talking about how we're feeling. And, third, I kind of want to consider in our coronavirus environment where we're all in quarantine, a lot of people are experiencing burnout because we don't have that work and life balance. Consider how you're getting into work every day. If you're like me, I sleep over there and I get over and I have this work desk. And it's been really great for my mental, to be honest, because I'm getting up, I'm getting changed, I'm putting on my makeup, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to work. But a couple of months ago, I was just rolling out of bed and my desk was right there. And I did not have any work and life balance. I couldn't tell what the difference was. And I felt like my productivity was down. I was burnt out. I wasn't happy. I didn't understand, like, you know, how to really manage that. So making sure that you put defined barriers, borders, and spaces to define what is work time and what is free time will really improve your mental health.
Yeah, definitely think that's very important. The fine line between this is work and this is my life, because working from home, things are going to blend together and you really have to be firm in your work life balance when it comes to that. Something that I do to maintain my stress and organization is I use Google Calendar for absolutely everything. Even when I'm meeting with friends, I'll put it on my calendar, I'll ask for their email. I'm super psycho about that. And I'll be like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm hanging out with my friends. From this time to this time, this is me time. I even have to block out lunch because I started forgetting to eat. So, like having those blocks of time are really important and help with organization. For stress, like I said, you need to have that support group. It's very beneficial, especially right now because we can't physically see people. But, setting up a game night every Wednesday, I have a game night with my friends that, I don't get to see because they live in California. And it's honestly something I look forward to every single week, and it helps me get through my week. And then managing stress, just making sure you're doing self-care, like evaluating, how do I feel right now? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling stressed? And taking care of yourself, making sure you're eating healthy, you're working out if needed, and just overall maintaining a healthy mindset overall.
Yeah, in times like these, it can be a little bit, overwhelming. So it's good to have those defined like moments between free time and your work time, and also having the balance so that you can have some peace of mind while also maintaining your life. We're gonna do one more group question, and then there was one question for Sabrina, and then maybe some, rapid fire questions, and then we can end it probably before 5:30. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So, last group question. Do you think quarantine has had a positive or negative effect for the esports community?
That's an interesting question because I kind of touched on that earlier, talking about how everyone's so online right now that we are able to see more news and also kind of engage with each other through online means only, which can be both, it has its positive and its negatives. I think in general, I think it's an opportunity. A lot of people talk about this being less impactful on esports perhaps than some other industries, say like traditional sports, where the challenges are different. But I don't like when I hear like, oh, esports is booming now. Now everyone should get into esports. Esports is so lucky. You guys must be so used to working in this environment and, haha, introverts, right? Like, I feel like that was almost like a defense mechanism at first. People were like, oh, I love being at home and I love like jumping into game and then going to work and going back to games. But ultimately, it's not healthy and it's not sustainable. And there are still a lot of challenges we're facing, even though, yeah, games are online and it's easier to do an online tournament than an online basketball, game. So I think that it's had its negative effects for sure as well. Like, I don't think anyone is saying quarantine is awesome. Like, we're doing way better, except maybe like Twitch viewership. But I think overall, everyone's struggling. Like, everyone's trying to figure out new work styles. And especially speaking from the higher ed perspective, budget cuts are so big right now, just across almost everything. It's just people have to reevaluate their priorities. Nothing is working the way that you expect it to. And we don't know how long this is going to last. So maybe right now there's a spike in popularity, there's a spike in viewership. But as we kind of, move forward, we really need to be creative. As I think Sarah said about like all these different things we have to think about. And right now, esports is kind of getting shafted at the university level because esports was never the number one priority for any university. And now that budget is tight, you're going to see more like people just being like, well, esports was this thing that we were kind of hoping to invest in, but now we can't. So, whatever. So I think there's still an ongoing kind of an uphill battle, I think, for a lot of departments and clubs as well.
Yeah, I think Kathy really gave a great insight on like the collegiate level, right? Like I've also heard from a lot of collegiate leaders across the nation that they had an amazing esports program. Administration was on board. They were ready. They had their esports arena / lounge good to go. And because of coronavirus, it's all slashed because there's other things that are more important to save, which is, I mean, I disagree, but they just don't see it, right? So in that case, like collegiate has been suffering. And I also think on the community side, collegiate's been quite difficult. I mean, I'm talking to my brand ambassadors over here at Evil Geniuses. And, we have students from all across talking about their experience. And a lot of it is just how hard it's been to recruit new students within the collegiate space. You don't have the experience that like Sarah had when she was going across campus and seeing the Longhorn Gaming and going to the meeting and falling in love. You don't have that. You have to communicate all of this online. And as much as, as Kathy mentioned, everyone's like, like esports can still continue. It's so much stress and it's so difficult and there's just not a lot of resources available. If administrations had invested a little bit earlier with a little bit more commitment, I think it would be a great space. But unfortunately, that's not the hand that we're dealt right now. In terms of pro esports, it's quite interesting as well. For example, League of Legends was able to be promoted on the ESPN broadcast because there was no sports going on a little bit earlier this year. And that was a great opportunity that would not have happened without COVID, right? Like the only reason they were doing that was because they needed to fill competitive programming on a major cable network like ESPN. However, that has quickly gone away because now NBA is on and where are they? They're not here. They're not supporting us. Like we were just there to kind of fill time for them. And I want people to understand that there's a difference between support and, taking advantage of. And I felt like that was kind of taking advantage of the esports industry because they just needed it. I'll bet that doesn't mean it's bad, but let's be realistic here, right? So did that, support the esports industry? Maybe we got 1% of those viewers converted into esports fans, but it still didn't mean anything, and there needs to be a lot of discernibility between all these things. And I think that overall, has esports been better with COVID? I don't think so. I think that there's been a lot more cost involved. I think that there's a lot more help involved, but it hasn't struggled the most either. And I think that also one thing to consider is how the games industry has, been affected by COVID and how that funnels into esports. Let's talk about like how Nintendo has the highest, sales of all time, for their company, and like how Animal Crossing was one of the top games for over 3 to 4 months. That is important to know. But how does that affect esports? And I think the answer is not as much as we hope.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say that quarantine and COVID has been the best for esports. A lot of comments coming to us are like, oh, esports can operate. That's so lucky. Sports can't. Well, we can operate, but things are having to change. And I think that's where being creative really comes into play here. So, events are being canceled. Overwatch League had homestands this year, and a lot of homestands didn't happen because of the coronavirus. So what happens? Well, everything is moved online, and you have these deliverables. Speaking on account manager side, you have these deliverables of live events where it's a watch party, where it's a tailgate, where it's a homestand. Well, how do you satisfy these sponsorship deliverables and still bring them that value? You have to get very creative of what can we do in a virtual setting. And I think while it's expanding our opportunity and mindset of what we can do in the esports community, it's also hindering us because you're not getting that live event experience. You're not making those merch sales. You're not getting into those PAX South, PAX East, PAX West events to try on that headset, to try out that keyboard. You're not getting those product visibilities or anything like that. So it's definitely come with its challenges, but I think being creative is definitely a solution here.
And I just want to add one thing I forgot to mention, but I mean, two things. One is from the collegiate side as well. It's just equity does not exist when you're in quarantine. Like, some people don't have access to computers or good enough equipment or internet connections. So some leagues did cancel because they didn't want to be unfair to the students that couldn't play anymore at home. So that's a big thing to consider now, is how do we continue to lower that bar of entry for everyone that's, in a different environment now. And then the second thing is, like, one word, netcode. It's I mentioned, games can function online, but a lot of games suffer a lot more than others. And we've noticed a big hit to fighting games especially. So I just wanted to mention that. I didn't forget about it, but it's overlooked oftentimes that you see some communities and some local communities especially like dying out because of it.
Well, I guess like it was kind of unexpected that COVID and quarantine would hit like the esports community so hard. So I believe that the esports community is resilient enough to overcome this, and in the future, if quarantine continues, we can continue to develop ways that we can socialize and have events that people can still enjoy, that reflect what esports really means to others. But it's really important to look at these obstacles and these shortcomings, instead of just assuming that esports is going to thrive because people can stay home and play games. We'll do the last 3 questions. We'll start with the one for Sabrina. What were your inspirations and goals for creating your brand Killsteel?
Yeah, I get this question a lot because it does seem kind of random. But the reality is that, when I was over at 100 Thieves, I was a team manager, and that's a very administrative work. You're working with people, you're making sure that they're happy, you're doing a lot of paperwork, all that stuff. And I think that Killsteel really was my creative outlet at that time. I didn't have that opportunity that I did, at previous jobs in the collegiate space, to really flex that muscle. So being able to create Killsteel during that time helped me a lot. I mean, it was something that was a passion project that grew faster than I could ever imagine. And it's been an amazing experience to do Killsteel because of the impact that it's had. We were able to donate almost $3,000 to different LGBTQ and diversity initiatives over time, and it's been an amazing experience. And I just want to push up more, right? And I think one learning lesson that I think a lot of people who are listening to this might be curious is that, yeah, just go do it. Like I literally asked my friends, hey, can I like make a brand? Like, do you guys think it's smart? And they were like, I guess, wasn't that hard? And I'm like, so like, very Elle Woods moment, I guess. But it just birthed overnight. I had the name. We did events, we did apparel, and like, what else can you ask for? Like, it's a creative project that has now more people involved, and I'm really glad that it's also become something that we can do good with.
Yeah, Olive and I were looking at your store yesterday, and we were both pretty sad that you were sold out and like out of stock. We're like, oh, we want
Next
Kill
drop
Steal
very soon,
stickers.
guys.
Ooh.
Put us on the notifications. /Kill Steal.
Last two questions, just really short. What did you guys major in?
Yeah, I think I said it during my collegiate story, but I was computer game science. So it was actually like 80% programming and then 20% game design. Very related because it's games, but not related because I don't program anymore.
Yeah, I was economics major over at UC Riverside, and I'm going to be completely honest, I don't use any of those skills. But I will also say my collegiate experience was very much 65-70% running Highlander Gaming and the rest on my major. And I don't know if I'd recommend that, honestly, but I knew what I was there to do, and I was always driven. I'll bet, unfortunately, not towards me.
Hey, supply demand. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, that's all I know.
Oh my gosh. So my major was corporate communications. I also got a certificate in business and then a certificate in mediation and facilitation. So that's what I did at UT.
A lot of real hard workers here. I know those majors are probably not that easy considering you guys to go to UCs, and UT Austin is not an easy school based off of what I've heard from my friends from LG. Last question for the night. What is your favorite game that you are playing right now?
Right now, waiting for Shadowlands for World of Warcraft, but currently going back to my kind of long-time favorite, Final Fantasy 14. So just resubbed, kind of getting caught up, gonna do a little baby raid as we wait for a WoW to come back. But Final Fantasy I've been playing since the beta of after 1.0. I didn't play 1.0, but when it kind of came back, that was stuck with me through all of college. All of my work with tag and stuff was fueled by raids that I knew were coming up right after my events. So that really drove my college experience, and it's really fun to kind of go back to that right now.
Yeah, I think that my longtime love is always and has been League of Legends. It's what got me into esports. I still play it every day to this day. But I also think I've been really enjoying Among Us just because it's been a lot of fun. My significant other streams it every day, and I like to get involved, and he has a really great community. So it's been a lot of fun backstabbing people and lying to them so they die.
Oh my goodness. I would have to say, same. I'm very excited for Shadowlands. World of Warcraft has been my day one game. It's probably the game that I champion me getting involved in gaming and esports and my passion for gaming in general. And then, I also have to credit Overwatch because, when Overwatch came out, it was a fantastic game. I was really excited about it because Blizzard was making the game, and Blizzard makes World of Warcraft. So I was like, this is going to be fantastic. And so I got to see Overwatch League develop. I'm from Houston, so of course I was rooting for the Houston Outlaws, and now it's really cool for me to be working on the team that kind of started it all. So I really have to credit World of Warcraft and Overwatch for being my favorite games.
Another quick shout out waiting for D4 as well.
Yes.
Oh man, this has been an extremely inspiring event for me, and I'm very sure my team and many others that have watched the stream tonight. So I want to thank you guys again for being a part of the panel. It was very important, and it was a first for Highlander Gaming. So thank you from me and my team and the rest of our community.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. And after the stream ends, we have a big thanks to my team. That includes myself, Belinda, who was streaming this entire thing from her place. Our panelists, Kathy, Sarah, Sabrina, our PR, Olive, Nikki, creative, Jenny. Jenny created the whole look for the thing. Thunder did the animation for the intro, AFK, and he did it for the special thanks, as well as thank you to our moderators who jumped in kind of like recently, Wei Tai, Matthew. Just this project couldn't have happened without everybody here. So thank you. Have a good night.